What if Ahsoka had joined Asajj Ventress and become a bounty hunter? The Jedi Temple was behind her now. Ahsoka walked with no destination, her steps slow but deliberate. She had made her choice. She was not a Jedi anymore. The neon glow of Coruscant's underworld flickered above her as she descended into its depths. The air was thick with smoke and desperation, the distant sounds of blasters and speeders blending into the constant hum of the city. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay still. Then, a shadow moved in the alley ahead. Ahsoka reached for her saber, but there was nothing there. A cold chuckle echoed through the dimly lit street. "Relax, little Jedi," a familiar voice purred. "Oh, I guess that's not what you are anymore." Ahsoka stiffened. From the shadows stepped Asajj Ventress. The ex-Sith tilted her head, arms crossed as she studied Ahsoka. "Didn't expect to find you down here again," Ventress continued. "You look lost." Ahsoka met her gaze, hesitant. She had fought Ventress many times before, and yet she wasn't her enemy anymore. "Not lost," Ahsoka said quietly. "Just figuring things out." Ventress smirked. "That makes two of us." Ahsoka hesitated. She could sense something different about Ventress now. She wasn't fueled by rage and vengeance the way she used to be. Something had changed. "Why are you still here?" Ahsoka finally asked. "Same as you," Ventress shrugged. "Figuring things out." She leaned against the wall, watching Ahsoka carefully. "Listen, kid. I've been where you are. Cast out. Alone. But let me tell you something. You don't have to wander these streets with no purpose. There's another way." Ahsoka raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" Ventress's smile was sharp. "You and me. Bounty hunters." Ahsoka never imagined she'd become a bounty hunter. Yet, months later, here she was, standing in a cantina on Nar Shaddaa, scrolling through a list of jobs while Ventress negotiated with a client. They had built a reputation, not just for their skill, but for their code. Unlike other bounty hunters, Ahsoka and Ventress only took jobs that fit their morals, tracking down criminals, rescuing the innocent, taking out slavers. They were efficient, ruthless, and in demand. "Another contract?" Ventress asked, striding up to Ahsoka. "Looks like it," Ahsoka said, shutting off the holopad. "Some senator's kid got kidnapped by pirates." Ventress smirked. "Good. I was getting bored." They worked together seamlessly, moving from job to job, their pasts behind them, until it all fell apart. The mission was supposed to be simple. Track a high-ranking Black Sun operative on Corellia. Capture him. Collect the bounty. Except it wasn't that easy. The job had been a setup. Ventress had been captured, dragged away into the depths of an Imperial holding facility. Ahsoka had barely escaped, and now she had to get her partner back. But she couldn't do it alone, which is why she found herself standing in a dimly lit hangar on Tatooine, surrounded by some of the most dangerous bounty hunters in the galaxy. Across from her, arms crossed, was Boba Fett. Next to him, the towering reptilian form of Bossk, his sharp claws flexing as he eyed Ahsoka. To her left, Embo adjusted the wide-brimmed hat atop his head, silent but listening. Ahsoka took a breath. "I need your help," she said. Boba scoffed. "And why would we help you?" Ahsoka met his gaze. "Because Ventress has been taken. And if she's being held, that means she's valuable." Bossk growled. "By who?" Ahsoka clenched her fists. "Cad Bane." The room went silent. Boba tilted his head. "Bane." Ahsoka nodded. "He's the one who set us up. And now, He's got Ventress. For a moment, the hunters were quiet. Then, Boba smirked. Well, that changes things. The plan was simple, at least on paper. Ahsoka and her team would breach the outer perimeter, fight their way through Bane's security, and locate Ventress before it was too late. They had assembled a team of elite bounty hunters, all seasoned professionals with enough firepower to level a small fortress. But Cad Bane was no fool. His stronghold was deep in the industrial heart of Lotho Minor, a decayed world of rusted factories, burning gas vents, and toxic smog. It was the perfect hiding spot for someone who wanted to disappear. And it was a death trap. Ahsoka crouched in the shadows just outside the compound's outer wall, her twin sabers gripped tightly in her hands. To her left, Boba Fett was priming a series of thermal detonators, his helmeted gaze cold and unreadable. Beside him, Bossk flexed his claws, his slitted eyes narrowing as he let out a low, guttural growl. And behind them, Embo knelt in silence, his hand resting on the rim of his wide-brimmed hat, listening to the distant hum of patrolling droids. Ahsoka took a slow breath. This was it. They had to move fast and hard, or they wouldn't get another chance. She pressed a finger to her comm link. All units, move in. The first explosion shattered the night. Boba's thermal detonators detonated along the perimeter wall, sending flaming debris raining down into the scrapyard below. Before the dust had even settled, Bossk was already moving. The Trandoshan charged forward with a snarl, his massive clawed feet shaking the ground as he raised his blaster and began firing into the smoke. The security droids never stood a chance. Blaster bolts lit up the darkness as Ahsoka and Embo sprinted forward, weaving between the wreckage. Ahsoka ignited her sabers, green and yellow blades cutting through the haze, as she deflected a hail of incoming fire. Droids collapsed under her strikes, their sparking remains crashing to the ground. Embo flipped over a barricade, deflecting a shot with his hat before landing on one of the guards and snapping his neck. Boba took to the air, his jetpack roaring as he strafed the enemy lines with precise blaster fire. For a moment, it seemed like they had the upper hand. Then, the turrets activated. Massive automated cannons unfolded from the stronghold's walls, their barrels glowing as they locked onto their targets. "Move!" Ahsoka shouted. The air screamed as the turrets unleashed a barrage of firepower, ripping through the bounty hunters' ranks like a scythe through grass. The first to fall was Gorvin, a burly Weequay mercenary. A bolt of blue plasma struck him in the chest, sending him sprawling lifelessly into the dirt. Then Score, the Togruta gunslinger, was caught mid-dash, his body torn apart by rapid-fire turbolasers before he could even scream. The rest of the team scattered, desperately dodging the relentless onslaught. Ahsoka clenched her teeth. They had to push forward, or they were done. She locked eyes with Boba, then nodded. "Cover me." With that, she raced ahead, weaving through the wreckage as she closed the distance to the nearest turret. Blaster fire whizzed past her, but she never slowed down. Then, she leapt. Spinning mid-air, she sliced through the turret's barrel, severing it in one clean strike. The weapon exploded, the shockwave sending her crashing to the ground, but the path was open. "Go!" she yelled. Bossk and Embo pushed ahead, cutting through the last of the droids as Boba dropped the final detonator at the blast doors. The explosion tore the entrance wide open. They had their way in. Ahsoka moved silently through the cold metal corridors of the stronghold, her presence a whisper in the Force. The compound was massive, a labyrinth of dark hallways and industrial chambers, all designed to be disorienting to intruders. She kept close to the walls, avoiding the flickering red security lights as she made her way deeper. Every breath was controlled. Every step was precise. Her sabers remained dormant in her hands, their hilts cool against her fingers. She didn't want to ignite them unless absolutely necessary. Stealth was her best weapon right now. Somewhere ahead, Ventress was waiting. She found the security room first. A single Gamorrean guard sat at the controls, lazily chewing on some kind of dried meat. He never heard her coming. In one fluid motion, Ahsoka grabbed him from behind, slammed him into the console, and let his unconscious body slump to the floor. She scanned the screens. There, Ventress, chained inside a reinforced interrogation chamber, her head bowed, her white skin stained with bruises. Ahsoka's jaw tightened. She turned her gaze to the other feeds. No sign of Bane. That was bad. If she couldn't see him, it meant he was watching her. She tapped her comm link. "I've found her," she whispered. No response. Static crackled over the channel. Ahsoka's blood ran cold. Jammed signals. No more time for caution. She turned from the consoles and moved. The doors slid open with a sharp hiss, revealing the cold, dimly lit chamber within. Ventress sat on her knees, bound by heavy durasteel shackles bolted to the floor. Her yellow eyes flicked upward, locking onto Ahsoka. "You're late." Ahsoka didn't smile. Instead, she rushed forward, her sabers still unlit. "I'll get you out of here." Her fingers moved to Ventress's bindings. But the second she touched them, something felt wrong. The metal hummed. Then, electricity surged through her body. Ahsoka cried out, the shock knocking her backwards onto the floor. Her vision blurred. Her muscles spasmed. And then she heard it. A slow, deliberate clap. Well, look who finally showed up. The shadows moved. Cad Bane stepped forward, his wide-brimmed hat casting a long shadow over his crimson eyes. He wasn't alone. From behind him, a squad of heavily armed enforcers emerged, their weapons already trained on Ahsoka. And then, a deep mechanical hum filled the air. Ahsoka's breath caught in her throat. A ray shield flickered to life around the chamber, trapping her inside. Bane grinned, holstering his pistol as he strolled forward. "Knew you couldn't resist, kid," he said. "It was just a matter of time." Ahsoka pushed herself to her feet, shaking off the shock. "You set this up from the beginning." Bane tilted his head. "You're not as dumb as you look." Ahsoka turned to Ventress, whose smirk had faded. The bounty hunter was watching her carefully, waiting. There had to be a way out of this. Ahsoka scanned the room. The shield generator was on the far wall, but she'd never reach it in time. And even if she did, Bane's men would cut her down before she could free Ventress. She clenched her jaw. Think. Then, she heard it. A metallic click. She looked back to Bane. He had drawn a small detonator, his thumb hovering over the trigger. Ahsoka's gut twisted. "If you're thinking of doing something heroic," Bane said casually, "you might want to reconsider." Ahsoka narrowed her eyes. "What's that?" Bane grinned. "Fail-safe." The detonator blinked in his hand. "If I drop this," he continued, "this whole room goes up." Ahsoka's breath hitched. Bane was always careful, always prepared. If he had a backup plan, it meant they weren't walking out of here alive. And then he gave her the choice. "You want her back?" he asked. "Fine." He lowered the shield and tossed something across the room. Ahsoka caught it. A blaster. Her hands tensed. "One shot," Bane said. "Right between the eyes." Ahsoka froze. She understood now. This wasn't just about money. This was about humiliation. If she wanted to save Ventress, she had to kill someone. Not in battle. Not in self-defense. but in cold blood. She swallowed hard. Her fingers curled around the weapon. Her heart thundered in her chest. Ventress watched her, saying nothing. Bane just smirked. He was enjoying this. Ahsoka took a deep breath. She lifted the blaster. And then she pulled the trigger. But not at the enforcer in front of her. At the shield generator. The explosion rocked the chamber, sending sparks raining down as the containment field collapsed. Ahsoka moved instantly, leaping forward, her sabers igniting in a flash. Bane cursed and dove for cover. Ventress ripped herself free, yanking the broken chains from the floor as she leapt up to join the fight. Ahsoka didn't hesitate. She grabbed Ventress by the arm. "Run!" They bolted for the exit, dodging blaster fire as alarms screamed through the facility. Bane's men were in chaos, and as Ahsoka and Ventress raced toward the docking bay, they realized something else. Boba and the others were gone. They had been abandoned. Alone and hunted, Ahsoka and Ventress disappeared into the jungle. They had survived for now, but they were not safe just yet. Drop the scenarios you would like to see in the comments, and I will pick one every week. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.